Hi, everybody. This is Travis, and today's January 8th, and this is a private YouTube video, so you only can see it if you have the link, and basically the link is only sent to members of our team. I guess some of the numbers in here are confidential to the team at this point, although I do plan on showing this to, Sunil and Angeline and leadership of the department. So we're going to talk through the design review component. I haven't dug into commissioning yet, so this is the design review component of some of our 2018 numbers out of eBuilder, which by and large, I'll preface by saying I consider that to be a radical success story, what we've accomplished this year using eBuilder. So we'll start off looking at action items. This is the number of action items issued by our team. You'll notice I did about 1,000. And then you guys are averaging about 100. What I would anticipate for 2019 is that these numbers are going to go up. I'll probably still hold about 1,000. Mine might go up a little bit, but I think the team numbers will go up to probably, more like 7 a week for you guys, or um, a higher number. So maybe 25, 30% increase is what I would expect to see in the number of action items. But that leads directly into the next slide, which is for all these action items, how successful have we been in actually getting something to happen? And you can't measure that. Obviously, you can't measure whether or not the anticipated action happened, but you can measure whether or not the action item got closed. And what the first thing you'll notice here is that the closeout rate appears to be correlated to the action item activity. So the more action items you send out, apparently, the higher the closeout rate is. But my closeout rate is the highest, and that's under 80%. I think we should have a goal in 2019 to get our closeout rate over 85% or up to 90%, something like that. And there's a couple ways of doing that. The first is that there's a hack. If the action item is more than 30 days later, I'm closing more than 30 days late. I'm closing that thing out myself and sending a second request action item. I think that's probably just a habit that we want to get into. That affects the closeout rate. It also affects the number of action items because you're duplicating action items. But it lets the teams know that we are watching them and watching them to see whether or not they're getting closed out. And I think in a lot of cases, it does result in the action actually happening. So these numbers will probably go up again in 2019. And so now we actually get into design review, and this is step 0, which is really a super important step. We've always had this conversation among the team about the non-applicable projects and applicable projects. I mean, we had that, I think, the first year that I was here. We were talking about non-applicable and applicable and trying to estimate numbers around those things. And so this is really a huge step for us, identifying the 800 projects that we are not going to review so that we can then focus on the 200 projects that we do want to review. That's super important. And I would say right here, I'm doing most of this, obviously, and I think that's going to continue to be the case. I'm probably going to handle, the lion's share of this because I take the initial pass when I do the pipeline report. But I do think that the overall numbers of this are going to go up because I took a look at how many of those happen in which months. There was a big uptick here around June or July, around the middle of the year, when I really got into a motion with that pipeline report. And I think it's going to continue at that level and maybe a little bit higher. So I anticipate that in 2019, we're going to see about 75 to 90 projects per month. Right now, we're in the 50 projects per month range, or I think overall we're in about 60 or 70 projects per month. So I anticipate that the total number here is going to go up somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000. So it'll go up 20, 25%, right? We might see 1,000 or even 1,200 projects designated as non-applicable within the 2019 portfolio. So then that takes us down to the actual design review files. Here's the number of design review files posted and the number of postings per month. And I know that you're all human, and so what you're doing right now is you're looking at your own name and making some judgments there. And probably what you've noticed is that June Timbang looks like a rock star compared to you. And that's partially true and partially false. Of course, June Timbang is a rock star, but that's unfair because what eBuilder gives me here is it gives me the last person who uploaded the file. Not the first person who uploaded the file. I can't actually run a report that gives me the first person that uploads the file. But the number that I really want you to look at over on the side is down at the bottom where you're seeing about 4.3 projects per week or design review files uploaded per week. And if you discount the effective versions, which we shouldn't discount the effective versions, I think that that number needs to go up again about 30%. I would expect in 2019, in order for us to sort of hit our goal, we really need to see that number move up towards about 6 or 7 design reviews per week as a team, which is a good number just to bear in mind. 6 or 7 design reviews as a team per week means that each one of us probably needs to be averaging about 2 project reviews per week. And for June and I, that's a little bit different, but it's sort of a good thing to bear in mind. Here's the versions. So now you can really see why June's number is so much different than everybody else's number, right? Because he has a lot of version 2 files. What I would actually like to see is I would like to see these files get larger and larger version counts. We have a couple that out there that are version 3, but what that indicates to me is that we're not doing a lot of back check within the same file name. And so I'd really like to see things that get out, to me, version 1 and version 2 are our initial design reviews. When we get out and see things that are like version 5 or version 4, that means that we've done a design review, somebody else has been in there, looked at the file, maybe we've back checked it, we've looked at it again, maybe uploaded, 2 of us have uploaded a version. So I'm really encouraged to see these version 3 files. And I'd be very encouraged to start seeing some version 3 and version 4 files within the portfolio. The numbers that you thought you were looking at before when you were looking at your own name are actually these numbers. This is the goal. The goal was, and I forget what number we put in there, I think we put in a very audacious number that we were going to review or be able to account for the review of 80% of projects that were $2 million and up. And we didn't quite hit that. So this is the numbers that come straight out of the pipeline report. If the project had a finished design date within 2018, there's obviously applicable projects and non-applicable projects. And then the uploaded files are the percent of the applicable projects that we did. As a team, we were looking about roughly 50%. And so I think some of that will come out of the applicable column moving into the non-applicable column. I know you all have a bunch of action items in your inbox right now to move things into the non-applicable item, but then it does mean that I think in next year we're going to need to uptick our design review probably to the tune of about 30%, like I kind of said before. And of course, next year I am going to move the bar down. This year, the stated goal had to do with $2 million and up projects, but I really think that for us, it is super important to get down into that $1 million project and $500,000 project range, because that's where all the real work is happening. That's where all those, generator projects and electrical infrastructure projects and lighting projects and air handler projects and chiller projects. There's so many more within that bucket that are under 10 million, but over 1 million. That's really where we need to live in that category. So this will kind of be the starting point for what we look at next year. The other thing that's worth mentioning here is that I think we need to have a workload conversation. You can see the number of applicable projects by, essentially, these are the regions that are assigned to the lead mechanical engineer. And the average is 75, which means that right now Glenn workload for 2018 was about 20% higher than average, and Maya's workload for 2018 was about 30% lower than average. What I need to do is take a look at the 2019 portfolio as much as I can by service area and see if there's some strategic service area moves that we might be able to make to balance that workload out. The other thing to bear in mind is that at some point this year, hopefully, we will see a replacement or we will have another member of the team get back up to a fully loaded team. There should be a fourth person in this mix. And so that'll help also. And that's the end of this slide deck. And so we will certainly be talking about this as a team as we get into our 2019 goal setting.